changed, but it's not fully changed. It is changing gradually, eventually, and we see many women coming to us. Last year we serviced about over 60,000 women and children. So we see a development, and like we have to first empower the women, to make her understand that she need not go through that. Men also, they have perceived roles for women. They think they can punish the woman if those expectations are not met. They think that the woman has to look after the family. True that there's a dual role, but many women, they are very good at multitasking. They manage this dual role very well. But the problem is that we are a patriarchal society. There's male dominance. All that is, it takes a long time to change the mindset.
Yes, but ma'am, what are the, I want to find out, are there any laws or punishments for men?
Yes.
What is the law regarding for men who actually exercise this sort of violence on women?
I mean, when you emphasize men, there are incidents of violence against men also.
Yes.
But when you talk of the percentage is more in the case of violence against women. So the laws are in place. We could punish a perpetrator under penal code. There are so many sections. Chapter 16 gives all the offences against the human body, like simple hurt, grievous hurt, forced abortions, intimidation, all that kind of thing. But that law, it imposes penal sanctions. So the woman who complains to the police or go to courts, she has to come back home because there's no place for her to go. Often due to stigma, she's reluctant to get away from the matrimonial home. So what happens is, when she comes back home, she gets it in double dose. So there was no protection for the woman. So in 2005 this law came to being, under which a protection order could be obtained if the objective of the law is to stop domestic violence immediately, to get an urgent remedy for the woman. So that's very effective, and this protection order is valid for 12 months, during which period the parties can be referred for mandatory counseling, so it won't lead to the breakup of the family unit. We have many cases of women who have been successful in ending violence and reconciling
also
with
the families.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a good point actually of how you keep the family together, but also stop this sort of abuse and violence.
That's what the woman was.
Yes.
And we at WIN, we provide all these services free of charge.
So that's a great service rendered by Women in Need, an organization that is pioneering the end to violence against women here in Sri Lanka. We're going for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The family.
Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports. We've been talking about the domestic violence against women and the work that is being done by Women in Need, and our special guest in the studio is Ms. Sumitra Fernando. And before getting to asking Ms. Fernando more questions on domestic violence, I would like to welcome Prashant.
Welcome. Thank you for having me back.
Good morning, Prashant.
Good morning. This conversation was so important that I didn't want to stay out of it, so you should continue.
Yes, so Ms. Fernando, now we were talking about domestic violence and how women don't like to talk about it very much, because obviously women are emotional creatures. They like to always have the people who they love around them. Yes. They value the family unit more than anything else. Even if they're doing a career, it's family that comes first. Just talk to us, Ms. Fernando, about these shelters that have been set up for women. how long are women, allowed to stay in these shelters run by women in need, and how does that sort of help them to come out of this situation?
Actually, till last year, we were the only organization who was operating dedicated shelters for victims of domestic violence. So we say it's a temporary shelter, and we keep the women for a temporary period of maximum we say 6 weeks, but depending on the circumstances we might extend the period, because sometimes the women and the children especially, they have no place to go. They are thrown out of the houses dead of the night, and sometimes the families also don't, in the sense they don't encourage them to be away from the husband, how much abusive he is, because they think it's a stigma, shame, and it will affect the family and other members. So what we do is we keep them, it's a very peaceful, a very tranquil environment which helps them to recuperate, and also they are with the other women who have undergone the domestic violence issue, and they know that they are not the only people who have been subject
and
to violence.
And we've also got this visual on screen right now, Ms. Fernando. It's on the effects of abuse. What are the sort of effects, of domestic violence or abuse on women?
Yes, because domestic violence is the worst form, I say, because it happens within the walls of your house. You think it's the safest place for you to live, and also it can happen any time of the day. Now if you take street violence, there's a particular time, and it can happen any time, but this is unexpected any time. It happens in the presence of children only, who are helpless. They can't help the mother, and they are helpless. They think that the father has the right to beat the mother sometimes, because they are beaten when they do a wrong thing. So no one to help, and no one to sort of get any support for the woman. So then when they are sent out the home, they have no place to go. So we keep them, we empower the woman, we work out a plan for the woman. If it is necessary, we go to courts and obtain a protection order, and once we feel, we speak to we try to speak to the husband, of course with the consent of the woman and other, if necessary, children and the extended family, and we work out a plan before we send the woman out of our shelter. We have 2 shelters, one in Colombo and one in Matara. Now the state also has started a shelter in Munatua. So this is it was a very essential thing. It's a very effective and strategic intervention in fighting domestic violence. So,
and it's also a good step, because now women know, or they might have been knowing for a long time, but at least today they know that they have options. They don't need to suffer in silence, because suffering in silence would not only just limit it to physical abuse, but a lot of psychological and emotional abuse as well.
Every act of physical violence would automatically cause psychological, because you are beaten by the person who loved you most, who had a very intimate relationship with you, and you never expected the man who loved you to hit you like that, break your limbs and cut your hands and all that kind of thing, throw acid at you and burn you. So this is a very good intervention, and people, actually the women now, they are aware of the message has gone through. We give the message. We don't have much money for advertisement, but it is given by people who have been helped, supported by women in need. They bring more and more women to the women in need centers for help. So that's also very effective way of giving the message that they should not suffer in silence, because many women don't want to break away because of economic reasons and love for the children, because they think that children should have both parents. And then also many women, although the abusers treat them very badly, they still feel for the man. That is the thing that we have noticed.
Yeah.
Madam, if I may add a question here, when you talked about the fact that women in need operate and give all these services, very important services, free of charge, how do you continue to maintain and sustain the work you're doing? Because the need is so large and you're doing such a great service. How do you keep the work going?
Actually, it's a very, very, very tough task. So we depend on the donations and grants from the donors, especially UN agencies fund us and some of the international funders, and some local institutions also help us. For example, now we are having this British School Community Service. They're staging musical, I think, night in Vegas. I don't know much about the detail because I'm not entertainment person. So all the proceeds will be given to women in need. This school is very sensitive. Once the children, the scout comes, give 25 school packs for the needy children of women in need. So
talking about locals giving donations, and one way is definitely to go and watch this play at the British School. But more than that, if they can give direct donations and get involved, how do they get involved?
Yeah, they could actually they could help our shelter, because shelter the women are given food, clothing, because sometimes they are thrown out of the house without any clothes, only in the night dress they would be wearing in the night. So we have to provide books, transport, medication, lot of expenses. So in the funders, it's very difficult to get money from the funders and donors for that purpose. So local contributions are very welcome. They can make the donations in favor of women in need. That's a very useful, very supportive way of helping our women and children who are subject to violence.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fernando, for joining us on the show. It's been very, very encouraging to hear about the work that you do. Just before we wrap up this interview, could you just remind all the women who are out there the number that they can call if they know of anyone or if they themselves are going through domestic violence?
Yes, 011 471 8585. That's our hotline. Can be reached any time of the day by any person all over the country.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fernando. So with that, we're going for another short commercial break. When we come back, we have more to talk about relating to issues surrounding women. Stay with us.